Are you interested in playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Are you a new GM to Pathfinder as a whole, be it 1E or 2E? Or have you played 1st Edition and are now trying to step into 2nd Edition? I'm going to give you 5 tips that I kind of learned from playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition over the past year or so. What's up, everybody? I'm Rob from Sage Tower Games, and I'm here to give you some tips about getting into Pathfinder 2nd Edition from a GM perspective. So the first thing that I would say is getting your GM sheet or your GM screen, however you want to have it set up, is important to get those tables, those quick little things that you need. If you're playing online, either have it available or have it printed out like I do. And the 2 things that I use a lot is the conditions chart that literally shows you all the conditions and kind of gives you a brief description, and the DC by level chart. This is really important for 2nd Edition because in 2nd Edition, the GM has more say over the DCs. It's kind of more fluid. So having a quick numbers by your fingers so you can quickly see what a level 17 DC should be at versus what a level 8 DC should be at is really helpful, as well as the modifiers. Now, there's plenty of other stuff on the screen, but you can customize it however you want. But for me, those were the 2 big things that I use almost every game that I play for my own campaign. The second thing that I would do is the critical success and critical fail system. Now, I've made a different video talking about this a bit more in depth, but it will probably take you a few sessions at least to kind of get it in your head to keep always looking forward. What it does is it's not just a natural 20 or a natural 1 anymore, but if the number is a plus 10 or if it's a minus 10, whatever the DC is, it's a critical success or a critical failure. At the beginning, it might take you a minute to notice, oh yeah, that's actually a crit, even though it's not an actual 20. So you have to keep that in mind, and eventually your mind will kind of program itself to look for it. As well as looking at the idea of what's called basic saves. A lot of times you'll see in spells, in abilities, creature blocks, basic fortitude save, basic reflex save. And at the beginning, if you're brand new to it, it may be a bit confusing. The basic save just means critical success, no damage, success, half damage, fail, full damage, critical fail, double damage. That's the basic effects. Some abilities have more custom effects to them, but in terms of just when it says basic, that's what it means. Keep that in mind if you're going through stat blocks or whatever, and you see a basic one and you go, well, what does that exactly mean? The third thing to keep out is the actions. So watch out for those actions. What I mean by this is the action system has changed quite differently in 2nd Edition. If you're coming over from 1st Edition, where you had a standard action, a move action, full action, all these different actions, it's all gone. It's a 3 action system now. As you start to level up and get higher up and have more abilities, that's when things start to get a bit more crazy, because now you got to actually keep track. Okay, I used how many actions with this ability? How many actions is this ability? Do I have enough actions? Do I have enough reactions? And the early game, players may only have maybe 1 reaction, possibly. But as they level up, get more feats and whatever, they may end up having, 2, 3 different reactions that they could do. So if they have that, they may not actually have that many reactions per turn. They have to choose. So keep an eye out for that. You don't want them to, do 2, 3 reactions when they only actually have 1 reaction. So you have to keep that in mind. Also keep in mind haste, adds a reaction, slows, kind of reduces a reaction. So you got to keep that in mind in terms of the action system. One other thing to keep in mind about the action system is in the first round of combat, you technically don't gain your actions until your turn starts. So what I mean by that is if you are lower on the initiative order than somebody else, you don't have your actions, and more importantly, you don't have your reactions. You're essentially flat-footed in a sense. So you cannot react. So keep that in mind for those that have maybe sheer block or some sort of dodging type reactions. Until they actually go in the combat, they don't have the reaction to do that. So that's another little tip to keep out for. Number 4 is to keep the combat flowing. A lot of what they did to redo the combat system in 2nd edition is to change how combat works. What I mean by this is the 3-action system is going to make it so where, in essence, enemies and players in most cases shouldn't be using their 3 actions to go attack, attack, attack. In most cases, they should be doing something else or have some sort of ability instead. It's a very poor action economy. And same for creatures. Creatures should have abilities, use those abilities. If a creature just walks up to them and goes attack, 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 and that's all they do, it's a pretty boring creature. It doesn't do much. And unless it's a creature where all they're just doing is punching things, then it has to be able to do something else. We already talked about reactions in the previous one, but the one thing to note about reactions in this case is attack of opportunities. Keep in mind, attack of opportunities in Pathfinder 1st edition, anybody could do it. Anybody had the option to do it. In this one, only certain classes can do it, and with certain feats. So what this means is that not everybody can attack when you move away, including the creatures. So players can feel more free to attack and then back out, and then come back in again next turn, attack again. They have more of that motion. Keep the combat moving. They shouldn't be stuck in this kind of you, me, cluck together, and then we're just going to fight until one of us dies. That was very boring combat. Keep it new, keep it fresh. If your creatures have abilities, look to use them. Even if it's not that great, but it's memorable. Seeing that creature do some sort of crazy death thrash ability, or it has an ability that allows it to attack 5 different targets around it for 2 actions. That's a cool thing. It's much better than it going attack against one enemy. So that's the main thing I want to say, to keep combat exciting, keep combat flowing. The 5th one I wanted to mention are keywords. Now, keywords are various traits that various feats, spells, all sorts of things have on them. And there's a few keywords I wanted to specifically highlight for this. The first 3 are the open, flourish, and press ones. The open trait means it has to be your first action of the turn. It has to be your opening maneuver. That has to be what you do first. Simple as that. Press is the opposite. Press means you have to be under what is called a multiple attack penalty, which means you have to have at least attacked prior to using this ability. You're kind of you're under pressure, under stress, and you're doing this ability. Flourish is a special ability which has very many different ways of how it can be done. But the key thing about Flourish is that Flourish can only be done once per turn. So what I mean by this is, if a player has 2 different actions that are Flourish, and they have the action economy to actually do it, they can't do both Flourish actions. They have to choose one. So keep that in mind, because once you get to the higher levels in Pathfinder 2e, players will have that, and it's very easy, if you're not paying attention, for them to do that and have multiple abilities. Another trait that's important to look up is the Incapacitation Tree. This trait is mostly on spells and maybe some creature abilities. And basically this is the trait that essentially means low-level spells can't kill high-level things. If you have a 4th level Phantasmal Killer, it's not going to destroy, super high-level creatures. Basically, the Incapacitation trait means if the creature's level or the target's level is twice as high or greater than the spell level, then that spell will be 1 success greater automatically. So in this case, in the 4th level Phantasmal Killer, double it to 8. Against a level 9 or higher creature, they automatically get 1 success greater no matter what they roll. So they can never crit fail the save, which means they can never go into the effect which actually kills you with the Phantasmal Killer ability. Now, this is an important thing, and as the way around it is you cast the spell at a higher level. But when you cast it at 5th level, now it targets up to 10th level, and so forth and so forth. You see how it goes. So keep that in mind for those kind of spells that have that trait. Another trait that's important is the death trait. This is the opposite. So a few spells have this, and a few abilities as well. And a death trait means if this ability or spell brings the target down to 0, they automatically die. There's no dying condition. There's no death saving throws. There's nothing of that sort. So that is the way it kind of goes. Be careful of those. Those are powerful spells. So just keep in mind if they have that, like a Disintegrate, like a Vampiric Touch, and so forth. So keep that in mind. One other last thing I wanted to toss in here as a kind of bonus one, if you will, is the idea of flat checks. Now, flat checks wasn't a thing that we had in 1E, but it is in 2nd edition. And basically it is just rolling a d20 and you have to beat a number. The flat checks have essentially replaced the percentile dice in most cases. So if you have to roll like to pass concealment, you just roll a d20. You have to get 5 or better for concealment, or 11 or better for total cover. So thank you guys.